podcast.
Hello. Well, I was hoping to be joined by the inside man tonight, who's a bit of a props maker among his many jobs that he's performed on many films. He's joined me on streams before, doesn't come on camera, works in the film industry. But sadly, I believe he's a bit under the weather this evening. So unfortunately, I am going to be riding single shotgun. Is that even a phrase? I'm not sure it is. But I'm going to be, I'm going to be flying solo. That's the phrase I was thinking of. Flying solo on this one tonight. Now, the place I'm going to be talking about, the link for the main website is already below, but this is an amazing place that I wanted to give a shout out to. I did a great review for them on TripAdvisor when I went there, and I went to this place just before the pandemic. It's a fantastic museum. I've got a lot of pictures. I'm going to talk about a few more things to do with the place, but this place is absolutely fantastic. So it's my absolute pleasure to give them a big plug. And look, if you're a fan of sci-fi, if you're a fan of filmmaking, model or prop making in any fashion, or you're just a bit curious about the process of practical effects, we're talking about practical costumes, practical miniature, or the use of miniatures in films, which was very much pioneered by the likes of Gerry Anderson, with shows like Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet would be the big ones people would know, of course. And then miniatures were used in a lot of other movies. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of things. So let's look at the website for the Miniatures Museum. Now, when I went, I contacted them a little bit ahead, and I just mentioned, I didn't even know the museum was there. I was in Lyon. I was visiting a friend, and I was just looking. I had a few days to kill, and I was looking up things to do. And then I saw that, museums, and I thought Miniatures Museum, and I thought, Miniatures Museum, what's that? That sounds cool, because I'm kind of into building miniatures myself. I mean, you should see my kitchen right now. And there's no other museum, as far as I'm aware, there is no other museum like this in the world. And the Miniatures Museum is not just a museum; it's a centre of education on what I would call practical miniature effects, costume effects in cinema. Now, it's pioneered by its curator, its creator, I guess, a really lovely guy, Dan, who was kind enough to meet me in person and take me around his private collection. Dan Ohiman is his full name. And if you caught the picture of me standing with a guy with an alien costume, we'll get into that in a sec, that is Dan. So it's located very much in the center of Lyon. I'm sure that there's an English version of the website, but for some reason I can only seem to find the French version right now. But the website's very comprehensive. You get a taste of what's on offer. There's a lot of miniature sets that have been built by Dan. I'm going to show you some of those in a sec, and you'll be absolutely amazed. It's not a tiny museum. It's over 6 floors, 5 or 6 floors from what I remember. The other thing that Dan collects is he collects original props and costumes from movies. So he won't take them unless they're absolutely categorically proved to have been on that set for that particular film. He's got a number of original costumes, a number of original models from a number of TV shows and movies, and I'm gonna show you those. So the location of the museum is central Lyon. It's just off of one of the main roads. Again, all the deets are on the website, but I'm just going to show you where it is because it's quite easy to walk past it, because it's down this kind of side alley effectively, and you'll see the sign there, and you can almost be forgiven for thinking it's a miniature cinema, as in a small cinema. They may well have a screening room there. If they did, I don't remember seeing it. Someone's unpacking their van rather inconsiderately of the Google car. But this is where it's based. So there's 4 stories. Yeah, so I guess it's a 4-story building, but it's got a massive courtyard out the back with a ring of rooms around it. This is a big museum. It's not a small museum. I mean, it's not like Natural History Museum big. It's big for a small museum. Does that make sense? I think it does. Okay. So and as I said, they made me very welcome because I, work in the industry, and I actually wanted to talk to the curator because I wanted to know who was the guy that had built all these models I'd seen online, and was very, very interested. And I decided there and then, if I ever had any miniatures that I was going to use on a movie, and then I was done with, and there was certainly on Pegasus Bridge, we probably would have had something. I was going to donate them to the museum. So if you do ever use any miniatures on your films, any of my fellow filmmakers that are watching, and you'd like to, you don't have room to store them, but you'd like them to go to a good home, Dan would love them. Dan and his museum would love them. Costumes, props, particularly from the science fiction era. But I mean, he even had some guns from Band of Brothers. So I'm not going to limit it just to that. I'm sure he'd be interested. So I'm going to just show you some of the pictures that I took. I don't want to spoil everything. And look, my visit to the museum was in 2019. This is the summer before lockdown. So we're going back a fair old way. But it was, and I was traveling. I traveled to Dijon to see a friend of mine. And then I had a few days at the end of the trip to kill in Lyon. I met up with my old choreographer, Natalie Wee Wee, as I call her. Long story. Really good friend of mine. Go back a long way. Now, so, I mean, the variety of the props and things on offer in this place is quite interesting. I'm not going to show you these in any particular order, just in the order that they appear in my photo album. I ported this photo album over from my PC, which tends to be where I store all my pictures. Try not to clog up the Mac with too much nonsense. So, he'll have things like this. Now, by the way, that background image that you can see, that looks like a movie set, but that is a miniature. That's a miniature set that Dan constructed. I mean, to give you an idea of the scale of that set in the background, that's probably about maybe 2 feet wide by about 2 to 3 feet deep, something like that. I'm being very generalizing here. This is a miniature ant. I think it's from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It's one of the ant models that they used for the sort of, there was a bit of stop motion, I believe, and there was some use of miniatures. This is one of the ants from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So he's got props like that in addition to the bits and pieces that he's built. So none of these, apart from the stuff he's built himself, none of these will be replicas. These are all genuine film props. So I'm sure people will recognize that's one of the many masks made for Green Goblin. Nice to see you, David. Do please share the stream. And Keith and Desert Phoenix, nice to see you. Keith, I'm here for a tiny preview. Well, it is. I see what you're doing there. Okay. Let me show you a couple of other things. So there's a lot of his like miniature sets are kind of housed in these kind of windows. Let me show you what I'm talking about so you can see the attention to detail that this guy. Okay, so this is a miniature set that this guy has built. Now, to give you an idea of the scale of that, that's probably about, that's in a contained glass that's probably about something like about 15, 16 inches wide, maybe about a foot deep. So yeah, a couple of feet wide, maybe about a foot deep. Hey, Jacob, nice to see you, man. So I'm talking about the miniatures museum. You're going to see some miniature sets and some movie props on the stream here tonight. So this museum, as I said, is located in Lyon in France. If you're in that region, particularly if you're in the town of Lyon, I cannot highly recommend this museum enough. I give it 5 stars out of 5. I'm just going to say that early on. I wouldn't be giving it like my time of day if it wasn't worth your time of day. So look at the attention to detail. I just want you to look at a couple of things here. Look at the books. Look at the Chinese vase above the fireplace on the right and the candlesticks. Look at the violin case on the floor there. Now these are not made from a 3D printer. This is old school miniature model making at its absolute finest. I've never seen anything quite so good as this. I mean, look at the fabric on the chair, for example. I'm going to show you a few more of these, but again, this is Dan, the curator. This is one of his many builds. You got kind of one floor that's dedicated to the stuff that Dan has built. And as I said, I was lucky enough to meet the guy, and you know, he spent about an hour of his time with me, and I'm so grateful. It just made the visit to the museum so much more special. I'm going to bring up a couple more of these. Obviously, I didn't take a photograph of all of them, and I'm sure there's been loads of stuff added to the museum in the 3.5 years since I went there. So this is kind of like a bedroom set. Again, this is all miniature. So this is, you know, this is probably only a couple of feet wide. The attention to detail, the type of material on the bed in miniature, but it looks exactly like the real thing. The towels and so on. I mean, it's incredible. You can even see that he's done things like given the cupboard sort of worn weathering detail with the paintwork. The same with the paintwork in the room. And you know, look at the little towels, the soap dish. You've got to remember that this miniature that you're seeing is only a couple of feet wide. It's really quite small. But just the detail, absolutely fantastic stuff. Now, I've got some film props to show you as well. It's not all cupboards and brooms, but I do want to show you a few more of his personal creations, because sometimes when you see them, I tried to photograph them at eye level, so you wouldn't, you know, you'd see it from the perspective as if it was shot on a movie. And he's lit them in a way that they should be lit if they were being lit for a miniature for film. This is an art gallery with actual paintings installed. More of a simplistic miniature than perhaps some of the others, but no less impressive. And let's have a look at some more. I'll get on to the movie props in a moment, people. Yeah. Now, this was one of my absolute favorites for sure. And again, I just look at the level of detail in this picture. You know, and I mean, you can kind of tell it's a miniature, but the level of detail. So this is your kind of 1950s, 1960s all-round purpose bakers, greengrocers, and candlestick makers. And again, this is a miniature. This is a couple of feet wide. It's not very big. And you know, look at all the different fruit and veg. You've even got price labels on them. The different packaging with some of the stuff on the shelving, the pots, the ceramic look of the pots. The way that you've got the signage in reverse in the back. See, you've even got a cracked window pane. It's that sort of level of detail. Some dust on the floor. That's the kind of thing, you know, the kind of craftsman that can achieve the sort of standard of work that Dan has achieved in these sets that he's built, these miniature sets that he's built. That's a forgotten skill, because of course, you know, these days people would build this sort of stuff in a 3D construct, or you know, or you don't use miniatures very often now. Now this is, I mean, this is an amazing one. This is a cafe This could be a set from a movie. I mean, if I showed you this picture and said to you, this is a set from my movie, the actors are not in the shot right now, can you honestly say that you could tell that that's a miniature? Because I'm not sure that you could. Note the napkins on the table. You've got the guitar, you've got things like the postcards in the background. Look at the lights and the lighting and the way where the shadows fall. Again, it's lit like a real set. The stained glass windows on the dividers in the booths. I mean, all of this kind of attention to detail. The scouring on the seats. All sort of stuff that you would expect to see in like a cafe of that era. Simply incredible work. Absolutely incredible. So again, I'm just going to reiterate this through the stream. This museum is in Lyon, France, the Miniatures Museum. And I was given a personal tour of part of it, which wasn't even open to the public, which was Dan's personal, Dan Ohiman's personal workshop. I'll show you some of the things that he was working on in a second. But these are all his personal miniatures that he's constructed. Now, excuse my voice for being croaky. I was running interference on Drinker's queue last night, and I'm a little bit worse for wear, a little bit poorly. Right, let me get another picture up here. No, that one's not a good shot. Some of my photos were not great, so we won't show you the shit photos. Yeah, that one doesn't really do that justice. So a bit, a couple more. Okay, yeah. So this is like the inside of an old music hall. Now, funnily enough, we have a location like this in Hoxton, for real, and the inside of it, certainly a few years ago, was exactly the same as this. I think they've done it up now. Again, typical of the time. Note the sort of the peeling of the paintwork. You know, a forgotten institution that's kind of been left to rot. Really, really evocative stuff. And again, that's a miniature. It's only a couple of feet tall, you know. So, I mean, Dan obviously had a massive passion for films generally, and that kind of thing. Now, he's put himself in this one. Let me show you this one. That's kind of cool. So this is a French, old school French tube carriage, which he constructed. And if you look, now that's Dan holding the glass up in the train carriage. I'm going to zoom in on that a bit. There you go. See Dan Ohiman, master artist, and that's certainly not a brag, because he is a master artist. Again, I sort of turn your attention to things like the detail of the weathering on the you know, on the materials. Look at things like the artwork, the graffiti art, and so on the train carriage itself, and even the newspaper stand on the outside of the carriage. All miniature, all made by hand. Again, Dan's own hands, and you know, RRT said, after the illness, inevitable hangover. I'm actually not hungover, mate, because I paced I'm not a big drinker. I did have a couple of whiskeys with Drinker, but I had a lot of H2O. I mean, I was back and forth to the toilet constantly last night because I was just downing pints of water. So, because it was so hot in that venue, I was sweating buckets. Yeah, David, incredible to think these are miniature models. These are all miniature models. And like I said, it's an incredible museum. If you ever get a chance to go there and see Dan's Dan's work, you absolutely should. And it's not just Dan's miniatures that are in there. I'm going to show you some of the other stuff that's on 4 floors, and his miniatures predominantly occupy 1 floor. You've got another floor which is predominantly miniatures from films, existing films, big spaceships, sci-fi, that kind of thing. There's another floor that's predominantly costumes. So you've got several different things there, and it's a good size. It's not a tiny. It's not a miniature museum, if you know what I mean. You can spend a good. You want half a day there. You want a good 3 hours. You want 2 to 3 hours, especially if you work in the industry. You have an interest in films, this kind of thing. Yeah, and I mean, of course, some of this stuff would have been built for movies. A lot of it's just Dan's own personal little projects. And this is a lovely Christmas scene. I don't know if this is. I guess this is kind of set in the office or at home. Maybe it's supposed to be Santa Claus's office. I don't know. I absolutely love it though, with the Christmas tree, the various things. So RK's just arrived. Hi RK, good to have you in the stream. No, so this museum is based in Lyon, France. The information is already, there's a link in my information, and it's a fantastic museum. I can't recommend it highly enough. If you're ever in Lyon, it's a very accessible city. Got a major international airport there. You can get there from Paris in an hour, or just over that, I think. It's not a hard place to get to. The museum itself is right in the city center, and I showed people where at the beginning of the stream. So this is our Christmas scene. I'll show you a few more of these before we move on to some other stuff. So let's see what else we have here. There's also, I mean, he's got some miniature figures and things. I took some pictures of them, but they didn't come out too great. I think this was still with the phone I've got now, which is a bit rubbish. So to give you an idea of the size of the museum, this is an interesting picture. So this is the interior courtyard, and it kind of wraps around itself. So this is me on the interior courtyard looking out. So at the front of it looks quite small, and this is part of the courtyard upstairs. I'm on the 3rd floor, I think, when I took this. Very, very French. Lots of pastels and all of that kind of lovely architecture. Now he has a number of props from science fiction films as well. In addition to his miniatures, let's move on to some of the other things he has. So one of the things that you'll see at the museum, if you go there, is this, which you might recognize from a few films. Yeah, and that's full size. So it's an alien queen. I think it's one of the originals. I don't think it's the one from Aliens. I think it's from a different movie. Or it was one that was built but either wasn't used, or I forget the story behind it. But no, hang on, it might have been from an Aliens versus Predator film. Again, listen, my trip there was 2019. So the thing is that all the props are authenticated. So that if he's going to display a prop, it's not a prop he's built. It's a prop that's come from a film set. The only stuff that Dan has built is actually the miniatures. So I'll show you a couple of other things. As you can hear, my throat is pretty dry because, man, it was noisy at that meetup in London. And yeah, I'm sorry, some of these pictures are not great, but I'm gonna, I mean, obviously I'm trying to encourage people to go there, not just look at my pictures and then not go. So it doesn't matter that they're not that great. But that's, you could get it, have a really good look at it, and it showed you how it operated as a piece of electronic puppetry. Yeah, I think it's, Jacob, I think you're right. It's the one from Aliens versus Predator. I think that's correct. Oh, sorry, just trying to keep lubricated. Right. Let's check out a couple of other things. So that's not the only thing he's got, aliens-wise. He has a few other things. Now, again, I forget which films these are from in the franchise, but we had one of these. which is pretty cool to see. Your post-drinking voice is very gravelly. Yeah, very good for voiceovers. Buy Haagen-Dazs chocolate, the best chocolate in the universe. If they want to give me a job, I'll take it. Okay, so actually now I feel like I need some Haagen-Dazs chocolate now. What's going on? So let me show you some other stuff. So for example, he has a spare. It wasn't painted up, but it was, it was ready to go. They didn't use for the film. So this was from Alien Resurrection. Yeah, one of the props for that. And I do remember some people were carrying these in one shot, because you had a few Marines, didn't you, on that? That was a terrible movie, which was a shame, because I really rate that director. And of course, it was directed by a French director, so maybe that's how the props came to be. A couple of other really nice pieces here. Sticking with the Alien franchise, we have a facehugger. I also believe that came from Alien Resurrection. And then I believe this also came from Resurrection. Oh, sorry, forgive my. It'd be so good if I had a producer who was dealing with all these technicals while I was talking. So yeah, also from Resurrection, I believe. So you've got one whole floor which is pretty much kind of science fiction props, and then there's a big costume section as well. Now he doesn't just have stuff from the Aliens films. I mean, the guy's got a really impressive collection of things from many different movies. So you're going to see things along the lines of, this kind of thing from, I think this was from one of the Jurassic Park films. RK, we did a discussion about Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection. It's on the channel. I think it's an episode of Chew the Fat. So if you go, me and Matthew Holmes often, and the Inside Man, we pick two films and we talk about if they're good or bad, which is better or worse, or if both are good or both are bad. So we liked, I mean, Alien Resurrection was not. I watched it again recently, and I personally don't think it's aged well. It's got a couple of great scenes, and it is elevated by the cast. You're right, but that is not enough, sadly, not for me anyway. Yeah, this is. I think this is from Jurassic Park. This is the scene where, if you remember, they're stroking. They go and look at the dinosaur that's kind of ill. It's got the flu. This is the actual headpiece that was used with Laura Dern. So, in fact, you can see her names on the. Yeah, so this is the actual piece, and again, like I said, everything in the museum, if it's from a set, it's authenticated. It's the real McCoy. So, yeah, it's good stuff. And RK, just so you know, in that video, we only did Alien 3 and Resurrection. We didn't do Alien and Aliens, because I mean, we didn't think that there was a lot to say about those that hasn't been said already. This was quite funny. You come around the corner in the museum and you see that, not what I was expecting. This is one of the puppets from Gremlins 2. Yeah, start spreading the news. I love it when Alan Partridge does Jurassic Park. Yeah, I do. I'm a big Alan Partridge, Steve Coogan fan. I've met Coogan. Dynamic ball of energy, that man is. Let me see what else I've got here. So we've got, no visit to a museum would be complete without Mr. Frog or Mr. Toad. I think it's a toad. I can't remember if this was one of the toads from Harry Potter or which movie this was from. Again, it's in there. Practical effects. It's in the museum. You can part of the collection. Now let's move on to a couple of other things. So this guy had some, was like I go around one corner, think I'd seen everything, and then I come around another corner and I'd see something else. Very, very cool, full size kind of either animatronic creatures or costumes. This was quite a big piece, if I remember rightly. I can't remember which film that's from. Somebody in the chat might know. If you recognize it, share it out. It might. Do you know what? I think it was from that movie with the creature that's hiding in the museum. It's not Doppelganger, but it's something like that. I forget the name of it now. I think that's from that. So he's got things like this from The Fifth Element, again, because a lot of French filmmakers are patrons of the museum. So they'll donate props to the museum for display. So this is from Mimic. Thank you, Jacob. That is exactly the film I was thinking of, and you're right. It's from Mimic. Thank you. So this is from The Fifth Element, and great film, very underrated. Yeah, I forget the name of these guys, but they're the sort of bad guys, henchmen. It's bad boys. And then you've got stuff. You got strange stuff like this. Feels like the Mekon from 2000 AD. It's not the Mekon, but I think this was also from The Fifth Element. And again, of course, a lot of this stuff will be CGI now, so you're not going to get these practical creatures gracing your screens anymore. So it's going to be more of your kind of your CGI build and that sort of thing. He's got things like animatronic heads for characters. I'm not sure what movie this one was from. Men in Black 2. Men in Black 2. He had a few creatures from Men in Black 2 in the museum. And again, for anybody joining, because I know people are dipping in and out of this, I've said it at the beginning of the stream, I'll say it again. I cannot recommend this museum more highly. I really do recommend it. Okay. I'll just show you a couple of other things. Oh yeah, that's a cool. This is from the Matrix sequels. Check it out. Matrix Revolutions, and I bet you thought that they were all CGI, didn't you? But they were actually, they shot a lot of those in miniature and filmed them in water, I think, in some cases and for some shots. So yeah, there's a couple of other toadish creatures behind. I'm not sure what they're from. So let me show you the man himself. So this is Dan 4 years ago, or 3.5 years ago. This is in his private workshop. So he was restoring an alien warrior. And I mean, he showed me that like the latex on the arms was crumbling. So he was trying to restore it for display purposes. I'm sure they'll put it behind a glass. But the whole costume was so fragile. And I think it was an original warrior costume, I believe, from Aliens. Because there were only six. 6 of them were made. Yeah, okay, the Matrix enemy was mean. Good to see Darth Plato. This is the Miniatures Museum in the Lyon in France. This is the curator, Dan, and what a nice man he was. As I said, he took time. Notice also how Dan and I are wearing matching brand of shoes. We've got the same brand of shoes on, which I thought was really funny. Different color, but we do have the same brand of shoes, same brand of sandals. So clearly we got on well. There's another great shot of the alien costume here. Now, this wasn't on display at the time. This was only in his private workshop. And he's got like a glass door, so people were kind of staring through, and I felt very privileged to be able to go in and, you know, look at it up close, and also just have some of his time and have him ask answer questions. And yeah, he is a great curator. Fantastic. I'm sure if they have school trips and things like that, I can imagine he's the kind of guy that would come out and take time to talk to the kids and that kind of thing. This is the molds for the Hellboy costume, complete with the original attire, belt and so forth. I think I've just been to the 68th Cannes Film Festival. That shirt I still have. That cap, I don't think I do. And I think that t-shirt, I don't think I have either anymore. Yeah, so Hellboy. Now he's got a couple of other things. Let's move away. So there was a load of stuff in Dan's workshop that, you know, you couldn't see. Oh yeah, when I saw this, I was so made up because this is one of my favorite TV shows of the 80s. What a thing to see in the museum. An original V Starfighter model. I mean, it's funny because when you look at it, you can see how basic it is. You know, and this is probably one of the ones that they would have used for backdrop rather than close up, because it wasn't that big. And I think but if you look at the lines and stuff on it, you know, like where the door is and things, everything's really quite basic. I mean, lovely shape that they've handcrafted it there, but that's from the original V. So I did like the original V TV series. I need to do a stream about that. Something else I need to. Well, I've got a long list. Oh yeah, guys, you're gonna like this. Check this miniature out. Now, this was from The Fifth Element. This is massive, by the way. This miniature is massive. Check that out. The Lois and Clark ship. Pretty sure that's from Fifth Element, guys. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong. Not seen the movie for a while, but yeah, that's the miniature from The Fifth Element. Yeah, V was. I mean, the original miniature series of V was really good, and actually, they could have strung out the reveal that they were reptilian for probably a couple more episodes. I think they kind of jumped the shark a bit with that show, but then they didn't really know what they had until they had it, you know. And of course, the reboot wasn't the same, but that was a great show. Went up against the Los Angeles Olympic Games and got the same amount of viewing figures on national American television because everyone was so into it. I have another angle of that ship if you guys would like to see it. This is the kind of thing, you know, that's the sort of standard of miniature spaceship building that, you know, filmmakers want on their sets, because a lot of the issues with miniatures as well is people don't know how to light them. And the other thing that you'll notice is with this one on display is it's been lit properly in a way that you would probably light it in a movie, depending on what kind of atmosphere you wanted to create, obviously. So that is the Lois and Clark. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was the passenger shuttle. Wasn't it the one that like Kid Rock was on with all the like hot attendants and stuff that he kind of was like sleeping with every 5 minutes or whatever? I only remember bits and pieces of that film. It was a good movie though. Okay, that's not super cool. Let's try and look at this. This is pretty. If you got children watching, get them to turn away now. Now that is from season 8 of the X-Files. So doesn't look good for whoever that person was. Do you know what? I'd love to watch the whole of the X-Files again from the beginning. And it was kind of shot on that weird format where before TV went digital, when people were shooting in like Super 16 and stuff like that. And I don't know if they've ever scaled it up to digital. I don't know if that's ever been done. Can anyone in the chat answer me that? Just curious to know. That's a show I'd like to watch from the beginning. Now my man who was at the London meetup last night, who came with his sword and armor from Australia, he would like these. These are from the Last Legion, a couple of Roman swords. Very nice props. Had a lot of swords and weaponry, handguns, laser guns, that kind of thing. So not just miniature ships, but those kinds of props as well. Oh yeah, this is worth showing you. This is from Babylon 5. I'm sure we might have some Babylon 5 people in the... X-Files is on Disney. Okay, thanks for telling me that. Is that the entire show is on Disney? Like all of the seasons, everything? So there's a few different headpieces from Babylon 5. That's Natoth on the left, because I recognize her character mask from that alone. And then, you've got 3 other pieces there. The third one was an alien that was regularly in the bar. The fourth one might be a Maynab, or I forget what they were called. Not sure about the second one. Reminds me of the Empire's guards from Return of the Jedi, but obviously it's not one of them. Just looks a bit similar. What else we got here? Oh, I showed you that already. Okay, and like I said, I'm not showing you all my pictures because now here's the funny thing. So I remember telling the curator this. My good friend Jason Flemyng, they've got part of his costume in the museum. Now funnily enough, I called him one time when he was being prepped in makeup because he took 6 hours, and he's an actor that doesn't mind doing big makeup roles. And so he often gets called in to do those roles because, Jason Flemyng doesn't mind doing a big makeup thing. Let's get him in. And he had to have that massive ear attached to his head and the hump and all of that for Hyde in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and these big hands that he would, like big Kenny Everett hands. And I called him and he said, Lance, mate, you won't believe what I look like right now. And I'm like, why? What's going on? I've got a massive ear attached to my head. That's a terrible impression of Jace, but I'll work on that. But that's one of the... It's weird to think I was in that museum and there was a piece of makeup that was attached to my best friend. I'm lucky to be able to call him that, and I really am lucky to be able to call him that. See what else we got here. Oh yeah, this is a pretty interesting piece. When I first saw it, I thought, what the fuck is that? This is from The Nutty Professor, and it's part of Eddie Murphy's sort of Mr. Fatty, the fat version, I guess. And when his face would kind of expand, so you like these big makeup pieces, and it's funny to think that somebody salvaged that and it ended up in this museum. But a lot of this stuff just ends up in skips, So, like I said, if you're a filmmaker, you've made a particularly cool costume or a prop, and it's just going to end up in your loft or something. Get in touch with the museum. They may well take it off your hands. And, it's part of film history and it will be there for people to see. This piece I found really interesting. It's not particularly interesting to look at, but it just goes to show the level of kind of background detail that was done in some of the shots. So this is a wrecked building from Independence Day after the Los Angeles, downtown Los Angeles, has been destroyed, and they would have had several of these. I think there was a couple of them in the museum. When I first saw it, I thought it was from Stalingrad. And not a particularly detailed miniature or anything, but this would have been the sort of miniature that would have been in the background, that would have been produced en masse in front of either more detailed foreground or detailed plate shots with your principals. So it's an interesting piece. Like I said, I looked at it, I thought Stalingrad straight away, but it's from Independence Day. So, by the way, Keith and Desert, I saw the comments in my earlier stream about, your willingness to financially support my channel. Sorry, guys, I just dropped out accidentally there. My apologies. Anyway, yeah, thank you very much for the kind words earlier. Shared the wrong screen there. Right, okay, let's look at a few more things. I won't go on too much longer, but I do want to show you a few other things. Like I said, you can see what a great place this is, right? Now, here's a model that'll interest people. This is from Aliens. It's the rebuild of Ripley's shuttlecraft that was used for Aliens. There you go. Not as detailed as you would think, but that's the original. Because they didn't have I don't think they were able to get the one from Alien. This is a nice piece. I think this is from the Adventures of Baron Munchausen, I think. But it might have been from the New Musketeer film, actually. I think actually it's probably from the Musketeer film. Nice airship. Again, if it's from the Musketeer film, I'm surprised because they all looked very CGI, but it's possible that they build a miniature and then they use the miniature to then replicate multiple ships, so that they all had a similar degree of realism to them, which is a good way of doing it, by the way. Build a miniature, film the miniature, mass produce that footage of the miniature in CGI. You've got your fleet of Dakotas or whatever you need. No hints there about what I was thinking about. Right, let me not go out the stream again. I pressed the wrong. He pressed the wrong button again. Okay, what else we got here? I think that's quite a good piece. Oh, that's the I've shown you that, guys, already. That's the Lewis and Clark from another angle. Don't need to see that again. What we got here? And I kind of ended up in there's a pretty extensive costume section. So we're kind of moving on to that now. So this you may recognize as one of the Ra guards from Stargate. Again, really nice section. Very well presented, very well lit. This is not a museum with 3 or 4 rooms. It's a good collection, formidable collection of stuff. And like I said, I didn't take pictures of everything. Another favorite costume and weapon of mine. I was particularly interested in seeing the design of the weapon because we all wanted one of these. They were very cool. So that's like a visitor stormtrooper with the body armor on. It's funny because it's like the gun. I couldn't tell if that was a scratch build or if they mass produced it. But it looked like they'd got a series of the same parts and cobbled them together, but individually on a small production line. So each one of them would have been, they all wouldn't have been perfectly aligned and so on. I think that gun had been bashed about a bit as well. But great to see the full clobber because, again, these were, I was such a big fan of the original VTV show. I really was a big fan of it. God, I think I'm due to moderate Open Bar on Drinker's channel in a little bit. So I better wrap this up soon. We're nearly at the end. Anyway, I don't want to show you everything because you've got to go there. Yeah, this is pretty cool. I can't remember what this was from. I think this is a Predator from one of the later Predator films. Oh, Zombie, yo! Hey! Now, dude, if you'd come in earlier, I did think about reaching out to you because I normally like to do all these streams with a co-host. Actually, I could have asked Jacob Ironside as well to jump on with me because my throat is killing me from yesterday. Tommy's a great guy. I met him at the meetup in London yesterday. We shared a table for a fair bit until Wil asked if I could assist him with his queue because he was getting a bit overwhelmed and he didn't really have any help. So, you know, of course, didn't even have to ask. But Tommy, you bought me a drink, I believe. I think you bought me a drink and you bought Gary a drink as well because I was about to get around and you insisted on buying it. I thought that was very kind, sir. Very kind. This is another miniature which I missed showing you earlier, but I'm going to show you now. Very good. Look at the detail of the sandwork on the wall and the stonework. Very Maltese architecture. If you've ever been to Malta, a lot of arches like that. So let me just see if there's anything else that's worth showing. They have some things like they have some other stuff as well, like concept art, storyboards from a few movies, which is interesting to see, particularly if they've got the costumes and things. Yeah, you did. You got oh, don't worry about that, man. No, that's fine. Oh, you can't create graphics. That's cool. I'm always looking for people to help me with posters and stuff because I'm shit at that kind of thing. Yeah. Well, listen, man, you got me and Gary and Wil a drink. Or I think maybe just you got Wil and Gary a drink. So I think I was getting theirs. And anyway, either way, you bought around. So thank you very much. And I'm Brassic at the moment. So, you know, that was quite helpful. Yeah, so I guess that's kind of it. You know, there's more I could have showed you, but I don't want to show you too much. This is kind of nice. This is like an interior of I forget which show it was from. And this is kind of Action Man scale. So it's like a miniature flight deck. I don't think this is one of the ships from V. Somebody may recognize the costume that the guy's wearing, but it's a replica of something from a show or a movie. I thought it was pretty cool. So yeah, so that was my time in the Miniatures Museum in France in 2019. Great. I spent half a day there, best part of a good 3 hours, I would say. And I think that's the kind of time that you need to look round it. And it's well worth visiting if you haven't been. Really is. Now, guys, just to remind you, I've got a couple of cracking streams coming up. If you're new to the channel and you like your sci-fi, well, you're going to be over the moon because next week, this Saturday, first of all, I've got several guests coming on the channel, two of whom haven't even been on before, one of whom is Kung Fu Hot Dog, who I'm a big fan of Kung Fu Hot Dog. He's a small channel like my own. Really like the guy. Great personality. Me and him we met at the London meet yesterday. I recognized him straight away. I was the first person to recognize him, and he was bowled over. And I was like, oh, I was watching your channel last night. So he's coming on with myself and Wayne Byrne. We've also got the Gourd King coming on. Positive Fandoms here. She's giving me a $99 super sticker. I'm just waiting for her to win the lottery. So it's a thank you so much. I appreciate that very, very much. Thank you, Jacob. I'm so glad to have you here. Open bar's great. It is great. I'm hoping to get on there at some point. Cannolis. Look, everybody's turning up now, and I'm just about to wrap up. Oh, you're on the road listening in. I appreciate that. Thank you. So if you want to go back and watch the stream, because I've nearly finished it, you'll see a whole lot of photos from the museum, and I talk about it at length. So we're doing our top 5 sci-fi. So I said to somebody, if they're going to pick a Star Wars movie, they can say the Star Wars trilogy as one choice. That stops us having like 3 Star Wars films in someone's top 5. We don't want that. Or Star Wars and Empire, or so Star Wars trilogy is one choice. It's got to be predominantly a science fiction movie, so it can't be a sci-fi movie with a sort of a comedy movie with a minor sci-fi element. So, for example, I wouldn't allow Weird Science, but I would allow My Science Project, if you've seen that, which has time travel. It's more of a key element of the story. It's over 50% of the film. So obviously things like it's the films between the 70s and the 80s that's a big fertile ground of a lot of great science fiction movies. I've done my top 10. I'm not sure of the order of my top 5. I know my number 1, and I surprised myself with my number 1 pick because I wasn't sure what it was going to be, and Star Wars was the obvious choice. Whoa, Tomby's given me a $10 super chat, man. £10. Oh, dude, that's very kind. Everyone slides in at the end of the stream. Looking forward to the sci-fi stream. Won't miss it. Bless you, sir. I've only been monetized a few weeks, so I appreciate that. Yeah, so we're starting at 9 o'clock on Saturday. We're going to go at least 2 hours. I think it's probably going to go 3. We're going to talk about near misses first. And then, so Wayne has already said that there's no Star Wars movies nor Blade Runner in his top 5. So, big words. So it's going to be really interesting. I've also got Gourd King. I've got Gourd King coming on for that. I've got Kung Fu Hot Dog. I've invited Cannoli Sasquatch. I don't know if he can make it, but Cannoli's been invited. Inspired Reviewer's been invited. I think I invited Dark Hour as well. So I've invited about 8 people. So if everybody comes, whoa, that's going to be a party. That's going to be a bit of management control. But I think the more the merrier, because it'll prove very interesting to see who picks what. It's not an easy pick, just 5 films, because you're talking 2 decades that included the likes of Total Recall, RoboCop, Aliens, Back to the Future, all 3 of them, in fact. It's a lot of great stuff there to choose from. 2001. Some people think that's the best sci-fi movie ever made. I personally don't agree. But all 3 Star Wars films. It's a lot of choice. Then right after that, on the following Tuesday, I probably got my gaming stream. If my voice hasn't completely died, I may do a gaming stream at some point on Sunday, but I think probably I'm going to leave that. And I may do a gaming stream Monday night. I may do a gaming stream. I think Monday night. If I do a gaming stream, it'll probably be Monday night. Then on Tuesday next week, see, everybody's coming in now, just as I'm finishing. On Tuesday next week, thanks for the 10 people watching. Do like and subscribe if you haven't already. I've got the Tim Thomason interview. Now, guys, if you don't know who this guy is, then you didn't watch any of the sci-fi movies that went straight to video in the 1980s, but I did. I saw them all. And some of them were directed by my late great friend Albert Poon. But Tim was also in a film you probably have seen him in, was Uncommon Valor with Gene Hackman, the first kind of Vietnam rescue movie, which he starred in with the late Fred Ward and the late Patrick Swayze. 2 of the cast in that picture no longer with us. I'm also going to try and get Reb Brown on the channel. I've got news about a couple of other amazing, massive guests coming up. I've also I'm interviewing Danny Mosley on Wednesday, who's one of the stars from the new BBC drama comedy called Dreaming Whilst Black. Can't wait to get her on the channel. And then got a couple of really big guests between now and Christmas. Don't want to talk about it yet, because until it's locked and loaded and we got dates, don't want to say. But I've got one director coming in who's done a couple of my favorite movies of all time, possibly two. So let's wait and see. So quite a lot happening on the Outcast Creative. Right, I've got to jump over to Drinkers channel now and do a bit of moderating. So guys, if anybody tuned in today who met me at the meetup last night, thanks so much for saying hi or putting up with me for a couple of minutes while I introduce myself. If I was managing the queue and you were waiting to get a signature from Drinker, sorry if we had to move you on along a bit quickly, but we were just trying to make sure everybody got a photo and got a poster and all of that kind of stuff. But I did feel like I was one of his moderators in physical form last night. It was quite hilarious. But unfortunately, we kind of had to, there needed to be some mucking in because he was drowning a bit. All right. Guys, that's it from me. I'll see you soon. And I'll look forward to seeing people on Saturday. All right. Take care.